All right, it's 7:02. Recording's on. I am Brian Murphy, Chair of the Land Steward Woodward Subcommittee, and I call this meeting of the Land Steward Subcommittee to order. Members present are, excuse me, Alex, Chris, Shane, and myself. For this meeting, the Land Steward Woodward Subcommittee is convening in person or by telephone or Zoom web conference as may be posted on the town website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Accordingly, please be aware that other participants may be able to hear you. Maybe your broadcast may be captured by the recording. All participants should keep their phones or microphones muted unless recognized by me. Each vote, if there are any, I don't think there will be, except to adjourn, would be normally collected by a roll call vote, but because we're all in person, we can just do a voice vote.
You got it. You got a ding.
I did. Okay. This is a public hearing and comments are permitted. I will call on each speaker to address the working group. If you wish to address the group, please click on a raised hand icon or ask to speak by posting a request in the chat feature. Or if you're in the room, you can just raise your hand. Please identify yourself at the start of your remarks. Members of the committee may speak if called upon, but they are limited to 3 minutes each. Okay, so the purpose of this meeting, which we'd originally talked about months back, is to collect any feedback or input from any different groups that may want to give us feedback. Groups meaning towns board, CCF, whatever. It's the next meeting. We will be inviting full public input from the community. And we worked out today the abutters list, and those people will all get actually a physical notice, any abutters to the Woodward property, so they can come and join us. And that's next Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
Recording in progress.
When do I just say that? You can mute, whoever that is, you can mute yourself. Got it? Oops, I'm still getting somebody's feedback. Just heard my voice. All right, maybe not. No.
So yeah. So maybe.
How about that? All right, everybody's muted. Chris, you don't have a mute choice. Isn't that interesting?
I didn't join with audio.
Oh, all right. So everybody's here. Well, Linda, I don't know. It's not going to be great if I'm not sure why you're getting the whole screen here.
Yeah. That's on your, must be on the way you have it set up.
Not that I know of, but
What do you want me to do?
I don't know. Your sound is muted, so I don't understand why you're
See
the.
the 3 dots, Brian. If you wanna pin the room, it's under the 3 dots.
Yeah, but then when somebody else talks,
just turn off your camera.
There, got it. I have the video off.
all right. So I guess I'll take the comments alphabetically. A being AgCom.
Okay, well, in that case, I would like to present my comments personally.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow my agenda. The meeting minutes, sorry, 1 second. The meeting minute approval, Chris just gave us the minutes for 11:25. He doesn't have the audio for the other 2 meetings, so he can't really, or whoever's going to do the minutes, we don't have them. So I guess we'll delay the meeting minutes until for 11:25. We have them, we can do that. Chris, meanwhile, I will get you the audio recording for the other 2 meetings, and if it's possible, if you have the time to do them by next Tuesday, they could all get voted upon by. Right? The second thing on the list, sorry, was public comment. I don't know if anybody from the public has any comments right now at this moment in time. Sue? No? Okay. All right. Sorry, on to AgCom. I
Okay,
apologize.
I'm not presenting comments on behalf of the AgCom. The comments that I wish to make are personal, and I wish to make that carefully noted. These are my personal remarks, so
Okay, so sorry, I want to take the boards first.
you
So,
may do that.
so I thought you were speaking as,
No, I'm speaking personally.
okay,
Can I just ask, why not?
Because these have not been previously approved by the AgCom.
Has AgCom had a meeting since
No,
the land management plan was issued?
okay. So is there anybody from a town board that wants to speak on behalf of the town board? Or CCF?
We had a comment that we'd made at our last meeting with Megan. I just wanted to reiterate that because the Carlisle Conservation Foundation holds the conservation restriction for the Woodward property, CCF is responsible for determining whether any changes to the property are consistent with the conservation restriction. And CCF, under the conservation restriction, needs to be consulted regarding any license or change. And it would really be much easier if CCF could be part of the process rather than treated as an adversary in the process. Would make things easier and it would save time. It's not that complicated, but I do think that the land stewards should look both at CCF and other boards as partners. We're all working for the town. And that's been the biggest issue, I think, for the whole way this has proceeded, that it's been rushed and that other really stakeholders haven't been included as partners in the process. That's what we would ask for. Also, I just wanted to note that prior to confirming the license agreement, once it finally gets straightened out, CCF needs to bring it to our independent counsel to ensure that it's consistent with the conservation restriction before we can accept it. We haven't done that yet because it really has been clearly out of compliance. The definition of even what the property that was being licensed hadn't been determined. So we're making progress toward that. And once there's something that we all can say, this is the license agreement we want to put forward, we want to ensure that it's copacetic before we approve it. And then I think we'd said this previously, that I wanted everyone to understand that the Carlisle Conservation Foundation is working to complete the baseline assessment for the whole property so that we can complete either the second part of the second conservation restriction on the property, or we're considering whether we can combine a second conservation restriction with the first conservation restriction to make one macro document. It's not clear that can be done yet, but Steve is working to try to make that. We're actually meeting with our legal counsel and we're working with the state to see if that's possible. But we do need to complete a conservation restriction, either a macro document or a second restriction that covers the whole Woodward property. So that's a lot of work that we're undertaking at our own expense and as an independent organization to make sure that the town's property is in compliance. Anything else from CCF, Steve? Just wanted to get that on the record there.
Well, and as we said in that meeting, we needed another plan from Samson Mary that demonstrated Steve had a list of things that needed to be shown on the plan. and they're not there, and we asked Megan I asked Megan, I think in October to, get a quote from them. And then we all met in December, and I don't know if she still yet has got a quote, or if we were clear enough in what we were asking for. I think we were.
I think we were.
So with that, then that's part of the towns working with the towns determining what the boundary is for the property and working with the abutters to ensure that the boundaries are clearly understood and then demarcated. And responsibility for the property at the boundary. Do you want to state that more clearly? Okay,
I think
so
that's
we
good.
just need to make sure that the property boundary is appropriately demarcated.
Yeah, I think the issue was the cart path. It was easement or access, whatever it was, granted in 1956. What's the status of that? Because we're going to have to include that in the CR. We have to say, you know, this access is allowed in the CR. Need to straightened out. I think once we have that plan in hand that shows where everything is, it'll be a lot easier to get a legal opinion from town council as far as what the status of it is.
We already had an opinion from town council from,
Well, I've heard that, but I've never seen it.
okay, I will get that to you. And the opinion is, yes, it exists and it's enforced, and Adrian property or the Robert property now has the right to pass and repass over that cart path. It's their driveway.
No, it's not the driveway. It's next to the driveway. Well, part of the driveway.
Yeah, part of it.
Most of it's just their yard.
This, yeah. So I guess I will go back to Megan tomorrow and ask her what the status of that is and copy you guys so that somebody can keep on her. Because we need that plan. You can't really
Right.
proceed without it.
Right, it's gonna be what defines,
And that should have been done when the property was transferred. You know, it should have been done at town. That money should have been allocated in town meeting, whatever it was 7 years ago, and it should have already been done.
so with that in hand, that will help us to complete the second or the revised conservation restriction to just define, because defining the boundary of the property is part of what is required.
And having been on crack for years, it's horrible when you go somewhere and you can't tell what's what. You really need it clear planted.
Can I ask, do you have like any estimated timeline it would take to complete the CR? Difficult, I know, right?
Well, we're writing we can write the legal document, basically have to have it in, basically be in the same format as the current state conservation restriction. And the question is whether we're going to, and we're meeting with our attorney later this week, whether we can just write a new, write the document and submit it, or whether we're going to then go to the state and negotiate about trying to combine them. And that's the real timeline is how long the state's going to take with all of this. I would assume it takes about a year once something's submitted. Once we have the baseline assessment, we can write things pretty quickly because we've already drafted it. But the question is whether we have to back out and then redo the first one as well. I think we can do it we can do it in the next couple of months.
Get it submitted.
Yeah, to get it submitted. And the question is whether we have to have some discussion or negotiation with the state representatives before we do that. I don't know whether they just say, send us an email, or whether we actually have to get feedback from them. I think for them, it would be easier too if there were one conservation restriction for this property. In terms of.
Well, it'd be easier for the town, it'd be easier for us monitoring if there was one rather than field split down the middle. It's gonna be awkward forever.
Yeah,
But you're gonna need, so to speak, a substantial additional piece to handle. I just call it the Woodward for thing. That's gonna be really a different set of priorities, right?
In the back part.
Yeah.
I think the standard CR covers that pretty well. Forestry and sort of thing. So I don't think that's gonna be a real problem. I mean, we have to come to agreement with LSC about how we want to manage the property, right? That needs to make sure that whatever you want to do is included in the CR.
Right now it is. And, you know, in terms of the details of the thing, in terms of the preamble, maybe no.
but I think the other sticky point is the right to pass and repass over lot, right now it's lot 4 OS, I think. Where the other one clearly says, you know, no parking, no this, no that, you know, what are we gonna do? And meanwhile, well, it's the town's property, is the town gonna allow the licensee to pass and repass over that before there's even a CR? I think that's something town council has to work out.
Well, there's the licensee, there's also the public. I mean, one of the reasons this land was purchased was to allow people to have access to it. It's not just for licensees, it's for the town.
Right, but I think right now, it's not clear to me whether there's I don't know what the trail number that is, but if you have the right to go on to that, I guess it doesn't affect us. Townspeople don't care if it does a CR. I mean, the bog doesn't have a CR, and people can walk on it.
I mean,
The Cranberry Bog doesn't have a CR,
right.
but we certainly all have the right to go walk on it. I don't know if that affects that lot 4O, for this most northern lot.
Well, the CR would have to reserve the right.
So it might be different than the other CRs than the other CRs, my point, or combined, whatever.
Can I ask a question?
Just a second, I'm gonna,
You know, you mentioned that the CCF wasn't involved, and I guess early on, my understanding was there was some discussion at CCF. And maybe there was sort of the concept was, I don't know if I would say agreed to, but there was some interest from CCF about that concept, the concept of what's, you know, what we're doing there on the land now. Or was that not really?
We had a discussion with Judy.
Okay, was that, I mean, at the CCF meeting or no?
No, we had
Yeah, we're.
Steve and Judy and I met, I think, with Rhonda. And she laid out a concept for what she wanted to do. And we felt that it, from looking at the conservation restriction, it allowed agricultural pursuits. So we didn't see an issue. We brought it to our board and there was agreement at the board, not unanimous.
excuse me, but a vote, right?
We had a vote, which was not unanimous.
Okay. But it wasn't, it was positive.
That CR did not prohibit this use. But we didn't bring it to legal counsel.
And that was before we saw the license agreement.
I mean, it was early days, so
Right,
concept.
just concept.
Yeah, that's what that was my question.
And the flood management.
Going into the management plan, so last month.
Weeks
right?
ago, yeah. Okay, anything else?
I'd just say that in general, it would be helpful. You know, the new powers that have been vested in LSC are something that that LSC and the rest of the town is dealing with. And the more that LSC can approach other organizations in a spirit of partnership rather than in a spirit of partnership, it would be really helpful. Because I think that's the biggest issue that other organizations are dealing with. Administratively, it's difficult for LSC because it's a new organization, with a lot of different properties, a lot of different things going on. But given how complex it is, just working with people and in a spirit of collaboration would really help everything move more smoothly. With, whether it's with AgCom or the planning board or the select board or TCF or CONSCOM, whoever it is, we're all just trying to do the right things for the town.
So in that respect, do you think it would be helpful as we, try to move forward with this, with Woodward specifically, for there to be a working group that would include Grow Native, CCF, AgCom, to sit down and hash out the specifics of the management
CONSCOM,
and council.
if anyone from CONSCOM wants to be on it.
And part of the problem here is this belonged to CONSCOM. I wasn't chair of LSC, but LSC inherited what CONSCOM gave them, which was this plan, was voted on to have this change of use in agriculture by CONSCOM.
Well, it came from LSC to CONSCOM.
But it was inherited, it was voted on by CONSCOM and then inherited by, and I don't mean to defend because I wasn't even part of LSC at the time, I was CONSCOM. Until CONSCOM gave them the authority on the 24th of, wasn't the 24th, whatever it was, 22nd of December, 2024. They didn't really own it. We can all argue about how well they owned it and what they did with it, but it's something that was inherited from CONSCOM or passed down. So that kind of issue shouldn't happen again, but I certainly agree with you that LSD needs in the future to work with all stakeholders, whether they're abutters or you or a town board.
Can I ask what the plan is going forward in terms of this license agreement? What's the steps you see?
I thought I sent you guys all the schedule. Last time we met with the license holder, licensee. This time we're meeting with the town board stakeholders to the extent that they can participate, because some people, like John said, he might need to go back to his board, and so there may be a second run with them. Next week, we're gonna meet with the abutters and get their input. And then we were gonna stir the big pot of all the pieces and shake the box, and the whole thing would assemble itself, which may not be that easy.
That's the part I was asking about. How does that work?
Well, the idea
It's like
initially,
IKEA, you just put it together.
well, the idea initially was to come up with a set of, or attempt to come up with a set of recommendations to the LSC about how to proceed. So, and I don't want to prejudge, but you can have one set of recommendations could be as cross out paragraph 3 and, such and such forth. That's just one extreme. The other extreme might be to say, well, we need to do some other things. So one of the other things, that's why I asked the question, whether you think it would be useful, would be, to try to hash out whatever remaining issues there are with a small working group that involves the principals, including Grow Native, and see what we can come up with. I would just comment, from my perspective, I'd like to hear from Heather a bit tonight. But from my perspective, the Woodward property will need, at least in the short term, substantial additional work that I think, and that's why I'm here from Heather, is beyond the resources of Grow Native at this point. So I'll leave it at that, but I think that one possible set of recommendations would be to try to sit down and hash out how we would do that. And consistent with the CR. And I'll throw out another idea. This is just me, I haven't discussed it with anybody else, but as a stopgap, short-term interim measure to solve or at least ameliorate the issue, CCF's issue about issuing licenses until the CR is done, which could be a long time off, would be, instead of a license, to do a land use permit, similar to what was done at Osborne with the Blazing Star. Because when you look at the management plan, it's really a very small part of the overall property that's involved. So I'm just throwing out ideas. But I think that kind of approach might solve everybody's problems here.
Well, it solves the problems of Grow Native's responsibilities. It doesn't solve the problems of dealing with the invasives that are taking over.
But that is part of their responsibility.
Well, it is it.
It's in their
It
license.
was envisioned when the whole thing was a concept that the licensee would take care of all the invasives.
Well, maybe, can we ask Heather?
Yeah.
Well, I think I want to get all the board's inputs first, if you don't mind. I don't want to degrade it, maybe.
I just have another question here for CCF, that's right. Did you guys get a copy of the management plan that we had at our last week?
Yes.
You guys see that? You got to look at that.
Started looking for a big plan.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because one of the concepts that is in there that I'm not sure, you say it seemed, in the beginning, you didn't think the concept would violate the conservation restriction. But
When it was a concept.
right. But some of the details that we have both in the license and in some of the management plan, I'm not sure it's consistent with Steve.
Right, well, we're waiting to get what is actually a final. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at all the drafts because it seems to change every time I get another email.
I'm sorry, which draft?
Drafts of the license agreement and the management plan and
Well, we haven't changed. It's only what's on record in town hall at this point.
okay, well,
But that was the purpose of this group, was to go back through that, and maybe there were things in that shouldn't be in there, or other things that should be in there, and then go back. If we all agreed upon that, meaning the community, then we might have to go back to the licensee and see if they agree to the changes. I just pick a simple one I don't think anybody's going to argue about, which is, someone wrote in there, dogs must be on a leash. Well, I don't think Heather's going to stand out in that field 24 hours a day and make sure dogs are on a leash. And that just can't be the licensee's responsibility to make sure dogs are on a leash. That might be, LSC might put a sign that says that, or the town might say, no, that's in violation of our no leash bylaw. I don't know, but it's at some point it needs to be addressed. And that's just, tip of the iceberg. That's just a little one.
Yeah. And the one I was concerned about was the invasive problem. Some of these invasives require herbicides treatment. And that's the part in the CR that I thought may not be compatible
But I
with
think
herbicides.
certainly that kind of thing, you'd have to get written permission from CCF to do.
But I mean, it's in the restriction that, I forget the exact words, but something like organic. Consists of organic.
I don't think so.
I think something in there did say that,
Was it?
Yeah.
because it's been, Andrew had it organically, obviously. Nobody's, there's certainly no broadcasting of any pesticides or herbicides.
So there's the yin and the yang of this. One part of it is there's a lot of work to be done and somebody's got to do it, right? And the other side is, does some of that work require the use of methods that are prohibited by the CR?
Right.
So we've got issues on both ends of that spectrum. I think if we came up with a concept for how we want to get the invasives managed, then we can get down into the nitty gritty of what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Okay.
Right. So we want to work with LSC and and whoever's on the land to help ensure that the land is managed appropriately, so that we have a big problem that's growing,
Right.
That's growing every season.
Right.
And we have to get after it. Or,
Right.
as a group, we have to get after
Right, and it's not just on this one property.
it. Really, yeah. But this is the one where there's an open field that we're trying to make this an open field. And some of the other.
Control as well,
And, some that they have had tractors out there
who has,
on toll.
not that I know of.
It's open. No,
Oh,
no,
that's a small mower, yeah.
Yeah.
No tractors.
okay, a mower.
Well, we did some brush clearing along the walls a few years ago, right? Several times. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Jack. I mean, that's obviously some time ago. Right, anybody else from
Let me know.
anybody else representing any town boards want to make any comments at this time? Is there anybody
Did we,
online?
hi, it's Melissa, did we post this for Conscom?
Conscom was certainly made aware, and I don't know if you specifically got it, but certainly Dan and George did, and it was Megan who posted it.
So is it posted as a joint meeting with Conscom or?
No, it's not a joint meeting with anybody. It might be the chair. It would only be a joint meeting if there was a quorum of Conscom or AgCom or whatever. But it's not a quorum.
It could be.
It could be if everybody showed up. Yeah.
So there's two of us, me and Sylvia on the call. So we're not a quorum, so that's good. Can I make a comment then?
Absolutely.
Without violating any, don't want to violate laws. So
just to be clear, you're commenting as a Conscom member, not as the Conscom in total.
correct, I'm just a Conscom member.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so when I took a walk around Woodward last summer, so in looking at the field, what I saw was basically a field that's just an ocean of non-native foxtail grass, and I know that Grow Native's been getting rid of some of a lot of the black swallowwort and other things, and we need to get rid of the bittersweet and the rosa and all that. But I guess my concern is I have photos. We grew just a bumper crop of foxtail seed this year because we didn't graze it, and so we've added a lot to the foxtail seed bed, and that's an invasive too. I mean, it's not a native grass, And so I'm concerned a little that we maybe have made our problem worse a little bit this year. I don't know if you have, sort of some thoughts about that.
Well, I think, Melissa, you brought that up several times now, and I think the focus right now is on aggressive invasives. Every field, for the last couple hundred years, farmers have wanted things like foxtail because it had a high nutritional value for their grazing. So it's just not possible right now. I think we're working on the really invasive non-natives before anybody tries to address anything with ones that are just ubiquitous to all the fields and not necessarily aggressive.
I
But
think Melissa's point is that we've spent a year where nothing has happened, when it should have happened. But we are where we are. We need to address both the aggressives and non-aggressives, if you want to use that terminology, over the long term. And we don't have a long term. We have a short-term plan. It's geographically, I guess 1/8 of 1/6, whatever that is, of the land area. It's 5,000 square feet against 6 acres. Somebody else can calculate it. And so, to me, we got to figure out what we're going to do, because we can't go or we shouldn't go another year with just a very limited approach. I think, Melissa is basically saying we made our problem much worse this year by doing nothing.
I think Melissa's point is that neglect is not conservation.
That's right.
We're working pretty hard there on both those properties, which were Canadian thistle, one not both thistle. So I've been doing my share.
I'm not denigrating what you've done, and I appreciate what you've done.
But those non-native grasses are all over town. And they have been for hundreds of years. That's what farmers wanted. Except for places like Foss Farm that have been herbicided, so they don't have those. That's going to be a common species. So I think that you guys can decide, but Grow Native should go for the most invasive species that they have. I don't think they can immediately have a management plan for grasses.
I'm not saying they need to have it. We need to have it.
Okay. So Melissa, did you have anything else to say?
Well, I think, there's my understanding is there are plots that Grow Native is going to be managing. And then there's the rest of it. And I would advocate for not going another season essentially cultivating a bumper crop of foxtail seeds again on the part of the property that Grow Native is not, where they're not cultivating native plots, just so that we don't put ourselves behind the 8 ball. And then I think we should have, kind of a long-term vision for what we want to see, and then we can decide how to get there. Anyway, I'll mute now.
So while we're on Conscom, Sylvia, did you have anything to add to that? Or anything different? Were you putting you to sleep, Sylvia? Okay.
Oh, okay. You were the one that muted me. So yeah, I actually was here just to listen. the Conservation Commission didn't really have a very long opportunity to review the Grow Native plan at the last CONSCOM meeting, and we haven't met since. So I was here, pretty much here as a resident, and to listen. We obviously do have a meeting coming up this Thursday, so I, but so I'm here as a resident and also guess as a CONSCOM meeting, but not as a representative of CONSCOM because we haven't really designated a person to sit in on land stewardship meetings other than you.
And that's gonna change.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I will say that we have, as far as I know, only a couple of properties, agricultural properties in Carlisle that are organic. And it would be a crime to lose this one if there's some way of not using an herbicide to control this. I would suggest we try very hard to look for it. I'm assuming also that the 5,000 square feet that Grow Native is planning to use, they may or may not have identified yet, and maybe it's just too early.
Well, one thing is they didn't have a full plot plan, so
Right. Yeah.
I think they were a little bit of a loss.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I have a question. I believe there's a horse property up the street, and horses aren't mentioned for this property. Is horses going to be allowed to go on the trails?
I don't know what the regular trails rules are with other trails.
Yeah.
Are they all open to
I
horses?
don't think there's a problem, but just it's sort of a
Regulations, CONSCOM land.
Did you hear what Steve said?
no.
Doesn't allow horses.
Who doesn't?
My CR doesn't allow horses,
Your CR, meaning the one you're reading?
no, the one I live on.
Oh. Okay.
Who was that? Who said that?
That's me, Sylvia, Chris Finney.
Oh, okay.
And Sylvia, you might recall another CR that doesn't allow camels, remember?
Yes, that was from a long time ago. I mean, and
So-
I am aware of another CR that doesn't allow horses, but the reasoning is that it's extremely rocky and swampy. So it would be inappropriate for horses.
Okay.
But this one is an open field, but there's really no place to really go, but that's neither here nor there. I just was wondering, because I did have seen evidence that horses have been in there.
So I guess that's something to address, but certainly if Grow Native was growing a whole bunch of plants and horses were tromping all over it, it would make a difference.
Yeah. Well, they wouldn't put it in the trail anyway, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I know Suki. So anything else from you as a?
No, I'm just here really, as I said, as a resident.
Okay. Suki has her hand up.
Hi, thanks. So just on the tail of what Melissa's concern about the foxtails and stuff and not letting the property lie fallow for another year. What, since there is no actual CR on that other lot, what can be done while it's in the process of putting the CR on it? What is allowed? This is my question. Just in general, what is allowed on there while the CR is in process?
I don't know, but I would assume that that's up to the town because it's town property. It's just doesn't have a CR. Again, sort of like the Cranberry Bog.
But what does Melinda think?
Sorry, this is what we can do until the second CR is in place.
Yes. What is allowed?
From the developer, which basically has equivalent terms to a CR. I haven't read it in detail, but I think it protects the land from, from building and from, motorized vehicles and allows trails. And then we're supposed to put a CR to formalize the terms. I haven't gotten into the details of it, but the deed in the meantime basically protects the land from inappropriate uses. When you get down to whether horses can go on it and where you can put trails, I think we'd have to look at the details of the deed. I think they're probably pretty not extremely detailed, and that's one of the reasons you want to have a conservation restriction to really fully delineate what you can and cannot do on the property.
But it's also another reason to have a collaborative approach with CCF where the stakeholders sit down and hash out
The details.
the interim details before, because we're going to wait. If we're just waiting for the CR to be completed, we're going to blow another year.
Or 2 years, it could be a while,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're even more pessimistic than me.
Okay, so I'm looking at the existing CR, and horseback riding is allowed on the trails.
Okay,
A lot of detail in there, but
Well, right now it's town conservation land, so whatever is allowed on town conservation land is allowed there.
is there anybody else from a town board who wants to give any input at this point? I do realize that all of you may need to go back to your town boards and discuss this further, and probably there's a future meeting again to go through and have people present based on what their board's opinion is. But is there anything else before I take any public input? Anybody else from a board?
Well, John is actually
John's a chairman of the board.
chair. He's
Well,
speaking
he
as a
said he'd be
member,
next.
just as Melissa spoke as a
But he
member.
said he was speaking to an individual, so.
Well, yeah, but I think we've sort of set a precedent that it doesn't have to have been cleared through the board if you're speaking as a board member.
Okay,
Just as Melissa was speaking as. a
he was saying he
member.
was speaking as an individual, so he was next on my list of individuals, but do you want to say something? Is this a good time for you?
I can speak at your leisure.
Please.
You're the chair. Okay, well, I would like to say that, I sit at this meeting and I kind of feel like, the kid who kicked the hornet's nest, But I have prepared comments so that I don't go off the rails.
Will you share those with us after?
I will share them with you right now, and I will share them with you after, if that's okay.
Please.
Okay. It seems to me that the question of how best to use, if you will, the Woodward parcel or the Foss farmlands is not to subdivide them further or segregate uses for differing or differential purposes, where they're arguably of conservation interest or otherwise. In the case of Foss Farm, an historic agricultural parcel preserved for use by agriculturalists, the proposed gerrymandering and reworking of the superficial geology will prevent the best use by the citizens of Carlisle who afforded the town the privilege heretofore appreciated by one and all. This would apply to both parcels in question. In Carlisle, as in so many other places, agriculture and conservation have worked together to preserve wildlife habitat and at the same time grow food directly and indirectly for human consumption. It is worth remembering that the practice of farming on Carlisle's open spaces is one of the highest priorities, as demonstrated in the town's most recent master plan. A few years ago, Carlisle voted at town meeting to make the town a right to farm community. In my 15 years on the Conservation Commission, farmers Duffy and Rogers have always been a conscientious partner who made good and reasonable use of the lands on which they were licensed. It should be noted that none of the historic inhabitants of what is now known as Carlisle occupied a primeval paradise, and we cannot in reasonable expectation return to a landscape that was until now unadulterated, untrammeled by humankind, seeking sustenance at the expense of someone or something. We should not be so pious as to think abandoning good cultural practices will produce a beautiful wildland best suited to a fauna now clearly out of whack. We should not be depriving our farmers of their right to farm on already designated lands by dubious fiat or perhaps personal inclination. It seems to me at this point, if one follows the mosquito reportage, the CONSCOM and its appendage, LSE, appears to be solely bent on depriving Carlisle's successful and civic-minded farmers of the land-based resources they require to sustain their businesses. It has already been demonstrated that neither Mark Duffy or Clark Farms practices are neither detrimental to the area soils, the watershed, or the community gardeners, to whom Mark annually renders considerable service. It is worth remembering that the goals of town boards, committees, and commissions is to reflect the sentiments of the townsfolk and not the personal recommendations or wishes of a few individuals on those boards, committees, or commissions, and to support the expressed opinions of the electorate. Finished.
Thanks. So can you email that to us so we can submit it and put it into the record?
I shall.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Beginning of your remarks, you said something about subdividing.
Not subdividing in the development sense, but I said subdividing. I said differentiating uses. In other words, what I'm referring to is taking some part of a field and making that a specific use, as opposed to making some other part of that field a specific use. And in the particular issues of FOSS, what it looks to me is going to happen is that by segregating different parts of the field, there's going to be a need to limit access through those parts, and it's just going to be, I think it's going to be a very negative end result.
Well, FOSS as a whole sort of different.
Yes.
So with respect to
Woodward.
Are you saying that you think it should all be in its entirety?
I think in its entirety, the best use would be for one person to manage the whole parcel and personally, and I think without having the specific voted upon agreement of the Agriculture Commission, that the commission would support the idea that this should be an agricultural parcel as it was before this proposal came before the LSC and the CONSCOM. I'm very nervous about, personally, very nervous about saying, okay, so you can use this half of the field and then you can use that half of the field. And you get into dividing things into very small parcels, and then there's always going to be friction. And we've, suffice it, we've already seen that friction between what somebody has said was going to be for this use, and then they said, well, this is happening and things are happening that we don't want to have happen over here. And, there's a lot of Asclepias growing in Carlisle, and whether we want to have an Asclepias plantation, there is, yes, surely it's a native plant. Surely it supports arguably endangered fauna, but is that the best use of that parcel in that place?
It's all over Toll.
It's all over the bog.
Yeah.
The bog has at least three Asclepias species. And if you don't know, those are what milkweed are called for those of us.
Thank you. Like, your vocabulary is
I'm
too large
sorry.
for me.
You know, dirt farmers have Latin vocabulary.
I remember from, and you were on Conscom too.
Yes, for many years.
In the nineties, and there was a lot of discussion about, I don't want to change the discussion, but a lot of discussion about Foss Farm being a multi-use property, right?
Mhm.
And we could have a debate about whether that's still appropriate for Foss or not, but your view is it's not appropriate for Woodward. Is that right?
I don't think it is appropriate for Woodward, and I think Foss already is a multi-use property. I mean, it has the riding ring, it has the trails, it has the community gardens, it's arguably the larger agricultural parcel. It is by its use a multi-use property already, and those are all uses that the town has historically supported.
And just one more question, does AgCom have a meeting this month?
Yes, it will have a meeting this month.
So I have a question for you.
Please.
I put to Heather, last meeting. And it probably goes completely against what you just said. However,
That being said,
that the issue of invasive removals, there are farmers in town who have animals that love invasives.
Hmm.
And, you know, and
like
sort
those
of the
goats.
goat clearing, it's sort of, yeah. And so, you know, and I asked Heather, and she hadn't considered it, but did at the last meeting that, you know, she wants to have dedicated areas for native plants, you know, that they, you know, have to first remove everything before they do that. And the thought I had was, you know, goats can do that for you.
Mhm.
So, you know, I guess I'm kind of floating the idea that it can be partnerships in these things too. They don't have to work against each other all the time.
Well, there are goat herds in Carlisle who might be amenable to that project. The town did at one point consider having a flock of goats, if I remember right, to clear toll or
Toll and CCF, I think, had it over on
It was sheep. wasn't it?
Benfield.
It was sheep.
and it was Benfield.
It became expensive.
Yes. It was too big a parcel and it was too much work to keep managing the goats into various parts of the parcel. But utility lines have hired goat herds to keep the utility lines cleared out. So I mean, it's not an unreasonable suggestion, but it would, from an agricultural point of view, it's a perfectly reasonable option.
Right, but I guess it would have to sort of be coordinated before you started doing any spraying or any
Oh, yeah.
herbicides and things like that, right? So,
Mhm.
Or long after. We were talking about what's commonly done is that if it's bittersweet or something, it's cut and that stump is painted. So I don't know what the half-life of the insecticide is the herbicide is that they use on the stump. But certainly you wouldn't want to send the goats out.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking of stumps as much as some other leafy bases.
No one's gonna spray those.
That was in the plan that we looked at, sure was.
I don't think so. But anyway, is there anybody else who's on a town board who wants to say anything, even if they don't necessarily right now represent their town board? Okay, so hearing none, I'll take comments from the public. And I'll start with the public that's in the room.
So
So if I wanted to ask you, oh, someone recommended you. I wanted to ask you if it's fair to say that part of your concern too was not hearing a justification for the change in use for Woodward. Is if that is your concern, that was ours from the very beginning too.
I don't think there's any particular reason to change the use.
I agree with you, but I still bring that to the LSC. We still haven't, other than CONSCOM says so, there's never been a justification for making the change.
It didn't come from CONSCOM.
Absolutely. I was
No,
on
it came
CONSCOM.
from Judy.
That's right.
No, I'm sorry.
Judy's idea, and she proposed it.
I
to
don't care
CONSCOM.
whose idea, whatever it was. We went out in the field with Andrew, drew a line, put in stakes, and told him he could not use below that line. And Margie was in there in the meeting. And for whatever reason, even though we drew that line and said that part of the field couldn't be used, it was used anyway.
We're talking about the question of why it was converted from animal husbandry to growing wildflowers. That was the question.
If at this point, it wasn't necessarily fully growing wildflowers, it was trying to preserve, and again, it was a much wetter year, to preserve 3 different species of milkweed that were on the property. And that was a decision made by the CONSCOM. Dan was the chair. We went out and looked at it, and that's what we decided. And what we decided was not honored by the farmer.
I think there was an error that someone made. He profusely apologized. However, if it's a punishment, we should just call it.
It's not a punishment.
Because,
And-
and if the CR says you can't just have idle growing, I thought milkweed was part of that idle growing, so maybe he shouldn't have been excluded to begin with.
But
Because
that's-
the CR.
That's everybody, Monday night quarterback.
No, but
That
if your
was
reason
the
is about
decision
him,
we
then-
made. You could go back in the
Well,
record.
can we just listen to her concerns and not argue with her? We don't need to argue.
Well, it's the question of whether whether CONSCOM had the right to change the use.
No, it's not, that's, whether it did or didn't, that's,
Okay,
her
sorry.
question was,
Go ahead.
It's not-
what's the justification?
Okay.
That's it.
So is there a justification that was a measurable, anything measurable or tangible to change the use of Woodward from what was working? But there's no, we're talking about bringing back sheep to help with the invasives. It's just kind of silly if you stand back and listen. So what was the measurable change? I know it was one person's idea. That was my understanding as well. And then it grabbed life behind a curtain. It's not too late to put it back.
Actually, there's a special place there at Woodward because it has a certain kind of seed bank in that meadow,
And
That's-
where
that's
is
the
that
reason.
data?
the whole place.
So who came up, what independent person came up with that data and where does it live? Because I haven't found it.
Besides Judy, there's others that specialize in that kind of work and knowledge. Yes.
Who was, and where is that documentation?
Well, I don't know if they've written it down, but that's what we were based on, and that's what we want to do.
Judy again.
Well, of course, she knows quite a bit about that.
But you understand from anyone else in the town besides,
Who is we? I'm sorry.
Who's what?
Who is we?
The people who are talking about the special seed bank that's in the meadow.
Yeah, so who's that? I'm sorry.
There's another member that was here, Dwight. He's specialty. He does it for his own job. He knows all about that kind of thing. That's his bread and butter. So we're all educated on it and whatnot. So
Okay.
the problem I have is nothing was ever written down for anyone to look at objectively. And you're just taking somebody's word.
but that's something like I said, they're like professional. This guy's like a professional. He knows these kind of things. He does it for his job.
Did
He's
you
been
write it
doing it for a
down?
lot of years.
Did you write it down for review? It's been my experience that I've noticed LSC often votes on just trusting somebody's word. And what I'm trying to get to is if you're representing the town and take care of other people's property, it should be something tangible.
Okay, but this was not an LSC decision.
Well, you keep saying that.
It was a
You're-
CONSCOM decision.
It was.
I'm sorry. Brian,
It's a decision.
Go ahead. Who's speaking?
it's Melissa. I'm
You weren't
sorry.
on Concom either.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but my understanding, my recollection is Judy came in front of Conscom in January and gave us a document, which I can forward to you. There was one, and it was with the proposal for native plant propagation. And there was no weighing in from any other groups. And Judy was seeking our blessing on something that LSC had already decided. So that's the genesis of this. This wasn't a Conscom decision. This was an LSC decision, which, as presented to Conscom, sounded good.
Are you talking about the year, so 2 years ago or?
No, I'm talking about January
of which year?
Of this year.
But we had already gone out the year before. Conscom had already made the decision not to let the lower part of the field be used for grazing, staked it, and informed the farmer that he couldn't use it. So the decision was made in that
Or
time.
2 years, 2 years ago?
We'd have to look at when Andrew had the land use permit. So yeah, I guess it would be 2 years ago.
Okay, that was before my time. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so guys,
I'd submit that was the original concept that was sort of trialed in one season. It wasn't the full-blown license and justification and things like that. So there was that preliminary work that was done, but it was, and I've had a difficult time finding the Conscom decisions on that in their minutes. I did try at one point to find that, but it's not clear that it's documented.
The handout was for the January 23rd, 2025 meeting. I can send it to you if you want.
No, but I'm not talking about January. We're talking about the summer before.
Yeah, and the season before, the decision was specifically to protect an identified stand of milkweed. That's it. Nothing to do with this license at all.
What was reported to the Agricultural Commission, which has been left out of the loop regularly until this meeting. This is the first meeting that the Agricultural Commission got a notice about. So I thank you for that. But what was reported on this subject to the Agricultural Commission was that Judy was promoting this idea through the LSE to the Conservation Commission, that this idea for changing the use at Woodward to grow milkweed was Judy's idea, supported by members of the LSC.
Not unanimously.
I don't
Be that unanimously or otherwise, this came from Judy to the LSC, to the Conscom. And you can argue that the LSC didn't think this was a great idea or did think it was a great idea, but LSC certainly got behind it and promoted it to the Conservation Commission.
I wasn't part of I don't have any information on that, except as a Conscom member and someone who went out in the field and met, and we drew that line.
Yeah, we try to accommodate the fellow with the sheep and whatnot, so then that didn't go too well. So, and if we're gonna have these wild plants growing there, we can't take a chance.
Yeah,
The grazing animals, getting out from the fence, and they'll just ruin everything.
when I guess for those of you who've never had the pleasure or problem of raising livestock, maybe you do not understand that fences, no matter how well they're put up, are permeable and mistakes do happen, and that the farmer should not be summarily punished for a mistake. But I'm sorry, as a farmer, I
was a farmer too, actually doing up.
Well, then maybe you should understand that.
And everything. I did, that's why we try to accommodate him. And
Well, it doesn't sound like accommodation has been made.
So this
I'm
is a
sorry.
Judy batching argument. If you're here as a citizen, you've made your statement. You can go back to AgCom. You're welcome to come back to us again and have
Okay.
further discussion.
I understand.
But I
I've
want
been
to table
told to
this.
shut up.
Is there anybody else who wants to make any comments?
Oh, Brian, just to follow up, would the LSC be able to provide a justification for changing use?
I don't know.
You won't, okay. You won't commit to trying to
No,
provide any sort of proof
no,
that.
I'm not gonna go through all the history. You might know that my time on this board is ending, so it's not even gonna be my responsibility.
When is your time ending?
The next, LSC meeting, because the residency requirements were changed. So I won't be, unless something magical happens, which someone's trying to do for me. As of the next LSC meeting, I will no longer be on the board. And as of this Thursday, I will no longer be on Conscom. So I can't take responsibility for you.
Is there anyone on your team that could make a commitment to?
I don't know. I'm not gonna,
Oh, it has to go through the chair, so I don't know.
I mean, what I would comment on is that the justification in some of the benefits, I think, are documented in some of our documents, and that's what we've been reviewing. So if it's not clear, that justification is not clear, we can take that feedback that says there's no, if there's a feeling there's inadequate justification for growing native plants in the change in use, then that's good feedback. I mean, that's the purpose of this meeting. Take your feedback and it's duly noted.
Or even growing native plants in this particular location versus other locations in town. So we do have, a lot of conservation land in town.
that was a particularly magical spot. It was a sweet spot with 3 different kinds of milkweed growing there. It was well documented.
That it was growing there, yes.
Yeah, and Norm loved it so much, he was growing it on his property then. So I don't know. But anyway, I want to move this along. It's already 8:15. Is there anybody else from the public? Because I know that Alex had some questions for Heather.
Well,
But before you get to that, is there anybody else from the public that wants to say anything?
Christina's got her hand up.
Christina?
Hi, thank you. So I think as sort of a slight outsider or tangential observer of what's been happening, I think there's sort of this cross or combination of concerns about the what and the how. And I think that it might be a little more beneficial to try to separate them, because there's a lot of circuitous conversation that keeps repeating that in relation to the how things were done that are sort of muddying the why. My understanding is that it appeared to be a good opportunity to introduce a balance, to introduce a little bit more conservation on this particular conservation parcel due to existing conditions, the seed bed that was documented in this area. And so I think what started as let's take this opportunity that in the beginning at least appeared to have fewer negative impacts based on the limited period of time that it was used by the most recent farmer for grazing livestock. It seemed like a good opportunity. I think that's where the why sort of stemmed from. The whole process of how everything evolved seems to sort of have tainted that why. I think that there is an opportunity to find a balance. There is an opportunity if we can just sort of lower the temperature a little bit and increase communication to have both. There's this narrative of if you're for conservation, you're against agriculture. If you're for agriculture, against conservation. I think you can have both. You can support both. And so if we can sort of differentiate the concerns about how things were done, separate that from why, what the intent was, to try to sort of bring in take advantage of an opportunity to sort of enhance conservation in this one small area, I don't know, it could be a little more productive. So maybe I'm a bit Pollyannish, but I think that, yeah, I'm going to repeat myself, so I'll stop here. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else from the public want to make any comments?
Brian?
Yeah, can I speak? I'm Patricia Wolf, and I live in Woodward Village.
Hi.
Hi. So I've been very much close to the field and watch it and walk by it all the time. I didn't understand why it wasn't, I think, given what was just said, why not have a small piece of the field be for this experimenting or growing these plants, and yet another segment of the field be for the sheep or the goats or whatever. A whole field for this plant project is way too much. And I think there was a way to have a win-win. Although I hear the agricultural group might not agree with that, but it just seems that way to me.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Sylvia, I see you're not muted. Did you want to say something or?
Well, maybe it's best for another time. I just know a little bit about the history of the kerfuffle out there with respect to the sheep going into the wrong area, and I'll document it and send it to you separately.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to take any more of your time.
Okay, so if there's no more public input.
Brian, this is Adam Hoyt. Yeah, this is Adam Hoynatsky. I guess I'll speak briefly as a citizen, even though I was a member of LSC during the time, but just speaking as a citizen. And I'll be short too because I don't want to rehash anything I may have missed earlier that was already discussed. I think I would just add that I would agree that the project, when we say how did it get here, I'd agree that it evolved too quickly, and it was from my perspective, sitting on the LSC at the time, very obviously championed very strongly, and unfortunately it just ignored the urging to slow down for more stakeholder input at that time, which speaks to what Christina just said, that it just became not really about the what, but about how it was done, how it was forced through, how it was expedited, so that it bypassed a lot of the conversations that should have taken place.
Thanks, Adam. Anybody else from the public? So Alex, I don't know if you can even remember, many moons ago, several hours ago, you said, well, I'd like to ask Heather, and I cut you off because I wanted to take all the input first. Do you even remember what you wanted to ask?
Well, it's probably a different question now, but Heather, hi. Are you there? Are you listening?
Yep.
Yes. Hi, Heather. So I guess the first question is, when you presented to us at last meeting, you mentioned that you were applying for grant funding, and I think you said you had a deadline of December 26th.
Yeah.
Did the application go in?
Of course it did.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. And do you have an idea now of when you would expect a response?
End of January, I believe.
It's a pretty quick turnaround. So the other thing is, you've heard the discussion here tonight. I'd like you to have an opportunity to say whatever you want to say about it, if anything.
Yeah, that would be great. It's now that time.
As far as I'm concerned.
All right, great. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me join again. Definitely some interesting conversations tonight that I was not aware of in previous meeting. It does seem to me that all of these discussions and decisions should probably have been settled long before a call for proposals ever went out for this agricultural license. And frankly, it alarms me to learn that it hasn't. And I would strongly suggest, if this is at all possible at this point, that it suggests to me that the license that has been granted to Grow Native is not valid. It does, there's not any agreement in the room as to why this license came about or why the land use decisions were made. And I'm not interested in Grow Native being embroiled in the middle of a Carlisle-wide controversy. So if there's any way, my suggestion is that you all take several steps back and get all of these issues and questions and a new CR sorted out. And I understand that takes more than a year. And then establish a revised license plan and start a new proposal process after that. Start from scratch. Invite the appropriate people to apply for that license. Does that sound like a process that could be undertaken at this point?
I was hoping, I think, that there might be an interim solution that would still involve, your proposal maybe slightly, or your management plan may be slightly modified, rather than just throwing up our hands and starting all over again. I think you heard in the room, really from two sides, saying that it should be one or the other. It should be agriculture, or it should be your proposal. I was hoping there was still a midway that we could discuss with you and CCF and AgCom. I don't know if that's possible, but in the meantime, you have your grant application in, and maybe we can circle back with you in a couple of weeks, or anyway, by the end of January.
I could certainly let you know what the results are of the grant, but I'm not sure that changes what would actually be possible to do on the property. And I'm in a position where I need to actually make plans for how this organization uses our budget and creates grant revenue to accomplish our mission. And if none of that matches up with the decision-making process for this property in Carlisle, then it just doesn't seem like a match. A match that I thought we did have based on the information presented to me in the proposal process. So I don't think that I would be happy to be able to be involved, for Grow Native to be involved in managing that property in full or in part. I know somebody mentioned, splitting it across, splitting that property so that there is two different types of usage. But the thing is, I just need to have those decisions made by Carlisle so that then after that point, after the decisions are made, then if Grow Native can be involved in some fruitful way, we can get started from that point and not before. And I feel like we are in a decision-making process that is not my place to be involved in. It's a decision-making process that should have happened before any licensed applicant got involved. I'm not sure if those of you in the room or in the Zoom would agree with me, but that is my opinion.
Again, I appreciate you coming and talking with us. Maybe it should have been handled differently, but I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Anybody else? We got anything else? Thank you, Heather.
I guess I'd like to comment a little bit on Heather's comment. I mean, we did enter an agreement, a license agreement with Grow Native. And I think the town has some responsibility to honor that agreement as much as we can. This subcommittee is charged with finding the flaws in some of the documentation and seeing if we can still make that work. So I don't want you running away from the results of this meeting. I think, the committees, the CCF haven't really had a chance to look at your management plan. I have looked at it, the subcommittee certainly has. And I think, for me, it's sort of changed a lot in seeing what you're attempting to do. So I still think I'm with Alex in saying I still think we can find a path to make some things work. Maybe more cooperatively. If we can. So I would just hesitate to we're not don't run off just yet is what I guess I'm saying. But I appreciate you coming here tonight and listen, none of these problems that we're encountering are in any way a reflection of Grow Native. So don't feel like, I mean, it's not a reflection on you. So thanks again.
Any other LOC board members have anything to say? No? Alex?
No, I thank you guys all for showing up. I did want to ask Sue whether even notices, I guess, went out or are going out to butters, whether next Monday is adequate time for you guys.
I'm not sure if this will be the first time many people have even heard of this. I've notified the Woodwards, the Hertz family, and pretty much occasionally I talk to Chris in the back. But no one else really knows from a butters. Like I haven't gone. I felt like it was more of an LSC responsibility.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just asking your opinion.
Is 1 week enough time to catch up?
Well, presumably your fellow butters would have some opinions already, or not.
I'm really unsure.
Okay, all right.
I'm so sorry. I might say, sort of as Brian was suggesting, that AgCom didn't get a chance to fully bake their meeting, that maybe they have to be seen again. Yeah. I would bet the public would have to be seen again.
I think it just gives an opportunity. We set a schedule back in early December of these meetings. And I know one of them got screwed up and he missed it, but I've already asked the town to send out, we got a certified butters list, and we're sending out a notice of the meeting next week. It's been a posted agenda. It was posted last year. It was posted in December.
Does that include Woodward Village?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a certified butters list if it didn't.
So the thing that's and I don't know if it's me just not I'm a very little person, so we talked back in February of 2025 about notifying the butters. So they were like part of the process and kind of heard this as it went along. And there's just a mailing going out now. So they're not gonna.
Because their meeting
not
is
gonna
next week.
know. No, but I mean, I'm not sure how much people will have just plain questions. What is it you're doing and why is Clark Farm gone?
They can ask
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah. And so as far as like having opinions, yeah, it might be 2 passes, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to start somewhere.
For sure.
And part of this has been the pressure that you've mentioned, you know, I've been waiting 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I've been trying to keep the momentum going. That's why we're having this meeting tonight. There were other things like the select board. They said, well, we'd probably like to meet and debate and discuss this and then come to the LFC Woodward Subcommittee. And I said, great, but let's start somewhere. So I think that's why it's good. At least all these abutters are getting a notice.
I noticed that there's a meeting in the
Next
next
Monday.
week.
Yeah,
You're getting a notice now that there's a meeting next Monday?
that's correct. Just like you
Which
got a notice
is
last.
the question, is that enough time? And
Right.
Well, I just don't know. I mean, I know
know.
your involvement.
Yeah.
Right. And
Look,
I know you're
looking at me.
I know you're involved. I just don't know how much conversation is.
One other what?
At least one other abutter.
Oh, yeah.
In the neighborhood.
None that I'm part of.
Okay. All right, got it.
But we're not obligated to give them legal notice. I just thought, as you and I had talked before, it's better that everybody is made aware.
I
So,
think that was sort of the tone that Barney Arnold set too, that, you know, as she was trying to kind of be a liaison helper and how to smooth things out with meetings and she said, communication and a butter notice is just how we do it in Carlisle. And so you kind of, she was another
and that's why
spearhead for that.
that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Can I close, before we close, I guess I would like to have a specific request to the CCF, if I may. And a couple of these are very specific on the documentation. And I showed Steve the paragraph.
Sure.
The paragraph is, Article 2B9 is the paragraph in the CC, in the conservation restriction regarding, herbicides.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask that you looked at Grow Native's proposal on herbicides and weigh in if you can on that particular issue. The other particular issue, which I don't think is a real issue because it's kind of a non-issue that may just go away. But we said in our license agreement that a porta potty was acceptable in the conservation restriction. I haven't been able to find that in the conservation restriction. There's a reference to a paragraph that talks about composting. I don't think that's what I don't think that's what a porta potty does. So that's just another specific one. Like I said, I don't think Grow Native was interested in bringing a porta potty in. So that particular issue just may go away.
It's in a section that has porta potties and buildings of a certain size. If you can find
The porta potties, I'm like, I didn't find it at all in the conservation restriction. And the paragraph that we referenced the paragraph that we referenced is actually the one about composting piles.
So if you have a composting toilet, then I suppose you could be part of the agricultural.
You could argue that, I suppose. So that was those two specific requests. Like I said, the second one I don't think is very important. And I guess the third one is more general in your review of that, the Grow Native proposals. If you see anything else in there, just to let us know. Get back to
As you
us.
heard, I just realized I've never received it. Whoever is the chair of the LSC committee, could you send official communications to the Carlisle
I
Conservation
made sure you got
Foundation to me?
those.
I was just looking through all the emails from you and all the emails related to LSC and all the emails from Native, and I
I
don't.
sent you a link because it's on the town website. It's a
It's a link.
large file.
Okay.
So
Yeah, they are available on the on
I
the
don't see
website.
anything. But I
Under
The
would,
town website
material?
is not easy to find these documents, but I finally found them. It's under land stewardship, and then it's under packages, meeting packages. I think it's on,
Yeah.
it's on the right-hand side of the land stewardship part of the homepage.
I don't see anything from you, Brian, but maybe it went this way.
Together.
I will find it.
Stage left.
So, just your questions are when CCF is reviewing this with council, that it specifically address those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those were two
Yeah.
items that we identified as issues at our last meeting. I think CCF is the arbiter of those decisions.
But I think probably where they're planning to put the porta potty is not in the area that has a CR on it at this point.
I don't
But
think
they're
there's
also not
any
planning
plans
to
to
have a
put
porta
a. But it's why I said it seems like a
It's the same as parking area. It's not allowed under the current CR, but I would think you would want to have it under the 32 acre CR so that you can get access to the property.
Absolutely, yeah. And you've been in there and
Parking
parking.
spots
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a long time, so.
Whether it's public parking or town official parking.
Right. And I think there's
farmer parking.
There is mention of parking spots in the license.
Right.
And, there's question of numbers and if that can be accommodated.
I think it's
with the new
two, and
CR.
that's what's in the CR.
But that's going to be addressed in the new CR.
Yeah.
Right.
But outside of that, we allow parking on conservation.
Or
land.
Megan.
Well, once they have parking lots, we do.
Steve, you had said you were, if I heard you correctly, when the new CR is being written, or if you do the merge, you're gonna try to help LSC get what they need. Is that,
Right.
is that the
Well, as long as it's
tail
consistent.
wagging?
As long as it's consistent with the conservation purposes.
So you may change things like sizes of the parking lot and having porta pot, like you may make all these.
Well, there's nothing about parking other than it's prohibited in the current CR.
Right. Okay, so what I heard was, I'm gonna try to help the
I don't think
LSC.
that having parking lot on conservation land is a no-no, because we have parking lots in most of our conservation land.
Right. The issue with this particular property is the S curve and having too much traffic coming out of that curve. So that's what makes this one.
Well, I talk about that, but I don't think that's really the issue.
It's just relocate, maybe.
Well, we talk about that. We should talk about that as a group.
Okay, so my question
That's one of the
is,
things on the table.
would CCF be writing a conservation restriction based on the needs of LSC? Is my exact question, because that's what I heard you say, but I might have misheard you.
We definitely want to make sure that whatever the CR allows or prohibits is consistent with what LSC's plans for the land are. So we're working together. That's what.
Otherwise, they could have no access. What would the purpose be? Even when Andrew had it, they would drive in there. It was town property, not property with a CR, but it would make no sense to make a piece of blind property that can't be accessed.
Oh, for sure, I understand that part. So having some parking, I understand.
The idea is to get everybody together, come up with a plan that makes sense.
Okay. I guess I thought this conservation restriction was independent. It was based on just the property and not necessarily, but no.
Well, it has to be approved by CCF and approved by the town.
Yeah.
The town is granting it, so we need to come up with a document that's acceptable to both sides.
And
the Commonwealth.
Right.
And the town is the select board or the LSC or?
Usually Conscom and the select board sign it,
Conscom,
but the select board has to sign as well.
but they'll probably take the.
Yeah, it does not, I think it did, am I right? It does not have to go to town meeting.
Right.
It's just,
Okay,
it's bureaucratic procedure.
okay, thank you for.
All right, we're getting a little off track. Is there anything else that's on our agenda? Anything else we could discuss?
Well, so your email to me said this is your last meeting in this committee.
No, it turns out it's this is just a subcommittee, so my last meeting will be the LSC, well,
someone is trying to get me a house in Cohasset tonight, and in Carlisle tonight, so we'll see how that works out.
Yes, it's not gonna work. for
No,
us.
it did though, really well for a long time. So,
All right, so
My
I'm
last-
just asking about
I will be,
January 12th.
I will be at the January 12th meeting. January 13th is the LSC meeting. Unless I have residency in Carlisle, I won't, at the end of that meeting, I will no longer be chair or a member. So there'll have to be a vote at that meeting or at the next night at the LSC meeting to decide who else goes on the Woodward Subcommittee and what the structure is. And I believe that, I can't see her anymore, but I believe that Suki has said that she will
Yeah, that's what she told me.
Join.
That she would
Yeah.
volunteer
Yep.
to join.
But she's remote until, when do you guys come back?
End of April.
Wow.
Nice vacation.
Is it somewhere good, I hope?
with
Yes,
horses.
somewhere that's warmer with no snow and ice.
Okay, great, okay. All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Don't all speak at once.
Second.
Oh, we're enjoying this.
So we'll just do a voice vote.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
We adjourned.